I think I have a few sisters and brothers in the house, and it's always good to be with them. So first of all, I do want to thank you for having me here. I want to thank Roger for that incredible introduction. I want to say that I'm proud to be here on behalf of the 7 unions, the 6 million members, and the 50 million workers who are in the change-to-win industries who want and desperately need a union. It's great to share this session with Reverend Jackson and Howard Dean, both people of principle, always going to raise up important issues, to challenge leaders, and who both understand that changing our country isn't happening in Washington, D.C., it's going to happen across our country. I thank Governor Dean for reminding the Democratic leadership that there are working people in all 50 states, and in all 50 states, workers need a choice. And I want to give him and all of you our commitment. In Change to Win, we are building our movement in red state and blue state before, on, and after Election Day. Because we understand that the reality is that what happens on Election Day only gives us an opportunity to have an impact for our families, for our communities, for our world. It's really what we do after Election Day that determines if elected officials remember their promises and stand up for us. And so I'm here today to thank you for all of you who've already stood up with us, for standing up for the minimum wage, for standing up for real health care reform, for going to the Hill yesterday and standing with us for the Employee Free Choice Act. Because all of that will make a difference in real workers' lives. Today I want to talk about why we need everyone who calls themselves a progressive to stand with us about the Employee Free Choice Act and make it sure it becomes law. You know, the truth is, unions make a difference. We are what helped build the middle class of our country. Workers' ability to organize is directly related to the survival of the American dream. And let's be clear, employers have never liked unions. But in the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, and the 60s, they realized that they could in fact have a good life, and so could their workers. But the greed of the 80s and the 90s, and a government that conspired with that greed, allowed big business to launch a war on working people and their unions. And as our movement shrank, so did the standards for working people. So did the hope of achieving the American dream. So I want to tell you a story of a real worker, Michael Johnson. Michael's a security officer. In Los Angeles, he guards one of the most prestigious buildings of that city. He is dedicated to his job and he is good at it, and his promotions prove it. Every day Michael gets up at 5:30 and leaves his house before his 5 children are up to go to his first job. He returns at 10:30 at night after his second job, after his children are already asleep. Michael's like millions of working people in America. He is responsible and he is resilient. But despite his 2 jobs, Michael brings home $550 a week, barely enough to pay for his 1.5-bedroom apartment. And health care, forget it. His kids have to rely on low-income health programs from the state. This is a man who is away from his family for 17 hours a day working, and yet he feels like he's a failure. This is what he said recently. He said, "It makes me feel less than a man not being able to support my family the way I want to." But the good news is Michael didn't give up. Instead, he fought for a union that would give him, his family, and people like him a chance for a different life. And after building on the support of public workers and janitors and healthcare workers, and with the support of people like Reverend Jackson, Michael and his fellow security workers just won recognition of their union. And now they are determined. And on the path to turn their dead-end jobs into long-term careers that they can be proud of and that will support their families. Now, this didn't happen by accident. In fact, it took years for this small group of workers who were determined to win a union to actually win one. But when we pass the Employee Free Choice Act, workers just like Michael can have a voice without fear of intimidation, harassment, or retaliation by their employer, and that's why it's so important. Michael's story of hard work and determination isn't uncommon in our society. And that's why my home union, SEIU, actually challenged every single presidential candidate, Democrat and Republican, to walk a day in our shoes. We think that anybody who wants to be president has to understand what it's like to be a worker in America. And so far, John Edwards and Bill Richardson have already walked a day. Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, Chris Dodd, Joe Biden are already being scheduled, and it's even rumored that Mike Huckabee might walk a day in our shoes too. It will be a good day to see him do that. Elaine Ellis, the nursing home worker, and Mark Fitzgerald, a family service worker who spent the day with John Edwards and Bill Richardson, are real people who have real struggles just like other workers in this country. They're concerned about what happens to their finances if they or their children get sick and they need medical care. They worry about being a burden to their kids when they don't have enough money to save for their retirement. And they worry that they're going to turn over the world to their kids and their kids will have a worse time. And these, in fact, are worries of the majority of workers in our society, and they struggle with them every single day. And that's why we think that anybody who wants to be president has to understand what it feels to be them. They must realize that workers want real results. They want real results on the issues that matter to them, on a paycheck that can support a family, on affordable health care, retirement security, on being able to give their kids a better life than they had. So Walk a Day in My Shoes is really about making politicians understand what the real world is like for the rest of us. And we think it will be a good day for all of us when they do that. Now for Elaine, Mark, and Michael, each of them work hard, they play by the rules. They give of them to their jobs, to their families, to their community. And they do it because they have to, but they also do it because they believe in the American dream. But today, who actually gets to achieve the American dream in our country? Who really has it? Well, today, think about these numbers. The top 1% in our country take home 1/5 of all of America's total income. They own 34% of the nation's private wealth, more than the combined wealth of the 270 million of us that make up the bottom 90%. They own 36% of the corporate stocks. The top 1% of America has a higher percentage of national income than at any time since 1928, the year before the Great Depression. Now, it used to be that when companies in America did well, so did their workers, but not anymore. Since 1980, between 1980 and 2004, productivity went up 68%. The stock market went up 800%. CEO salaries went up 700%. Wages stuck stagnant. Workers are working more hours for less money than at any time in the last 25 years. And even according to the American Census Bureau, last year was the 5th year in a row that workers didn't get a raise, the longest period of economic stagnation in our country's history. Now this is another one that gets me. The share of corporate income going to profits is an all-time high, and what's going to wages an all-time low. Today it seems that what's good for corporate America is well good for the very small slice of the top executives. And what's their excuse? They say, on average, everything's fine in America. Well, let's do some math. If you put Bill Gates standing beside our security guard, Michael Johnson, the average net worth would be $28 billion. That doesn't mean everything's fine, and it certainly doesn't do anything for Michael Johnson. So we need to forget about averages, and we need to remember about real people. This year, our Change the Wind Federation reached out to Americans, to working people in America, people who actually get a paycheck, to ask them, do you believe in the American dream? Do you think it's relevant in a global environment? Do you think that your kids will achieve it? And it was really remarkable that the American people are totally united. Male, female, black, brown, white, young, old, everywhere in between, rural, urban, red state, blue state, Democrat, Republican, Independent, they all overwhelmingly believe in the American dream and they know exactly what it is. It's a story that's been told generation after generation. It's a story that has made our country strong. So what is the American dream? It is the backbone of our society, the heart of our democracy, the unique explanation for America's productivity and innovation. It's not about getting rich, it's about getting ahead. But today, for millions of Americans, the American dream is just that, a dream, and a dream that is getting riskier and riskier to ever achieve. For the first time ever recorded, working families, regardless of income and education, believe that their children will not have a better life than they do. They believe that the economy is heading in the wrong direction, and they believe, the majority of them, 70% of them, believe that they are one healthcare crisis away from economic disaster. Our survey found growing anxiety, growing anger, and a growing demand of working people to rise up and turn things around. Now, there were two numbers that we found in this survey. One, they said that they know exactly who to hold accountable. 80% said that multinational corporations are too powerful. They are agents of driving down wages, taking away health care and pensions, and disregarding labor law. And they say, 70% of them say, and government lets them get away with it by not reining in greed and not stopping unethical corporate behavior. And you know what? They're right. Workers want the American dream, and they are willing to step up and step out for it. And they want a strong government that will fight for them. They want a government to promote basic economic security, but they want them to promote corporate accountability too. They want a government that makes sure that employers live up to their promises to working people about wages, about pensions, about health care. They want a fair tax system that is fair to them instead of giving it all away to the rich. They want government to make it less profitable to outsource their jobs. They want a government that ensures that they have a voice on the job. They want a government that encourages partnerships between workers and community and employers so that we can come up with good jobs for the 21st century. And they understand that there are real myths about our economy. The myth of the new American economy, that highly paid high-tech jobs will offset the loss of well-paid union jobs, or the ones that retrain and retool will be all okay, or that the new economy is a superhighway, the information superhighway, we know it's all pure fiction. But in reality, unless we do something about it, our new economy is going to be a dead-end street of underpaid, high-turnover, no-benefit jobs that will not support a family and will not sustain the American dream. And if you look at the occupations that are being added to our economy, they are retail sales, food service, preparation, food preparation, nursing, healthcare, trucking, customer service reps. These are not high-tech jobs. We're also told that education is the solution, but the reality is the number of jobs that are being created that need a college education is stagnant, and the wages of the college-educated is falling. With current trade policies, college-educated jobs are going to be the next ones to be outsourced. And then if you think about the wage structure of this new economy, over 40 million workers make less than $10.20 an hour. A third of our country is unable to lift themselves out of poverty because of their low wages. But sisters and brothers, the issue is not the jobs or the workers. The workers of the new economy are not low-wage workers in low-wage jobs. They are underpaid workers in underpaid occupations. We need to remember that the good jobs of the 20th century were the underpaid jobs of the previous century. Coal miners and people in assembly line learning, turning one bolt after another bolt after another bolt, didn't have an inherently good job. It was when they formed a union that they were able to bargain contracts that gave them good wages and benefits for their families. It was when they had a powerful voice. It was when they had a powerful voice that we could have good public policies in this country that dealt with workers and our society. And we were able to forge a social contract that meant that the economy could grow, corporations could prosper, but so could the workers too. I was fortunate. I grew up in Pennsylvania when 1 in 3 workers was in a union. And unions did lift up whole families, whole communities, whole generations. My mom worked a night shift in a nursing home and my dad was a disabled trucker, but I could still go to college and graduate without being buried in debt. And I could take that job at a state office building as a social worker and begin following and reaching out for my dreams. Workers just want to be productive, but they want their companies to be successful, but they want their companies to share that success with them too. And a voice on the job is the only way that we are ever going to level that playing field. You know, sisters and brothers, across this country in Election Day 2006, there were winds of change blowing. Workers were angry about the war in Iraq, and they were angry about the war in the middle class. And they wanted action, and they wanted change, and that's why they voted that way. And our new leadership in Congress came with a lot of support, with high hopes for working people. And we've seen that support plummet after they failed to stand up to the president on the war in Iraq. It is right. And we should not be shy about saying it. If the Democratic leadership in the House and the Senate want to break historic trends by holding on to the leadership that they just took and winning the White House, they better step up and make a difference. Workers want leadership. We want and demand leaders that will make a difference. This is not a time for timid souls. It's time for courage, and we call on them to be courageous. They need to take the first step to stabilize our world. They need to stop the escalation in Iraq, and they need to bring our troops home. They need to force this president to redeploy now. They have to stand with people who work and reward work, not just reward wealth. They have to give workers a voice on the job. And they have to get real about health care and retirement security. These are the moral and economic issues of our day, and they need to be solved. They need to take action to protect the air we breathe, the water we drink, the planet that belongs to the next generation. They need to enact real immigration reform so we can bring people out of the shadows and stop the exploitation. They need to lead. They need to lead us into solutions for the 21st century global environment that will work for all workers in our country and around the world. And I just want to say finally to all of you, what we all do matters. It matters to real people in our country, across this country. People like Connie Gallagher, a nurse that I met in fall of 2006. I went to Iowa to help some nurses who were taking on their boss in a very hard fight for higher wages. Connie's a nurse at Finley Hospital, and she's still in that fight, still trying to win. But she was out there knocking on doors for Election Day. And as we walked, we talked, and as we knocked, she told me her story and why she was so passionate about her rights as a worker, but her demand for health care for every single man, woman, and child in America. She told me about her son, James, a plumber, who had been learning his trade for the last few years, but he was struggling to get by and he didn't have any health care. So as a result, he decided to enlist in the National Guard. Now, Connie told me how she had tried to stop him, but he said no. She said, Mom, don't worry about it. They promised me that they're not going to send me off to Iraq. I'm going to be fine, and now I'm going to have health care. So James was supposed to come home from Iraq last month, but now, thanks to President Bush and the escalation, he'll be there to August at the earliest, and we hope he comes home safe. But Connie said to me that night, this is important, Connie said to me that night, no one's child in America should have to go to war because they don't have health care. Sisters and brothers, we have a choice to take back America, to create the kind of country that give kids like James Gallagher a chance at the American dream. But we do need to remember that there are powerful groups in America that like things just the way they are, that are going to fight to hold on to them. So we need to be out there telling our story, to say that in America everybody can win. Companies can make incredible profits, and workers can be lifted up and achieve the American dream too. But if they don't listen to us, we all need to get out of our comfort zone. We have to take chances and step up. We need to be willing to partner, but we need to be willing to picket as well. We need to step up, speak out. We need to hold politicians accountable. We need to put them on the spot. We need to stop being polite. Martin Luther King said once, "Our lives begin to end the day that we become silent about things that matter." We need to remember that. We need to remember that this is our country. We get to choose what story is written. Oftentimes when people hear stories about the Michael Johnsons or the James Gallaghers of the world, they say, somebody should do something about that. The truth is that usually means somebody else ought to do something about that. But the truth is, sisters and brothers, it is all up to us. We are the someones who must act. We've been working for change. Workers have been waiting for change. The time for waiting is over. The time for action is now. We are the people who can make a difference. Together we can rebuild America. Together we can rebuild the American middle class. We can secure a better future for our kids. We can reclaim the American dream. But it means that we need to step up. We need to speak out. We need together to change the world. Thank you very much.